In November 2024, while America was consumed by the results of a presidential election, a $2.2 billion deal closed that quietly transferred ownership of the country's most iconic ammunition brands to a Czech billionaire most Americans have never heard of. Federal Premium, Remington, CCI, Speer, brands that have loaded the rifles of American hunters, armed the sidearms of law enforcement officers, and supplied the United States military for over a century now answer to a single foreign conglomerate headquartered in Prague. We are going to expose how one man assembled control over what United States senators have called nearly 70% of primer production capacity in the Western world, and we are going to show you the only ammunition brands that are still manufactured under domestic ownership. If you have walked into a sporting goods store recently and looked at the ammunition shelf, you might believe you are looking at a healthy and competitive marketplace. You see Federal Premium in that familiar blue box that has sat on American shelves since 1922. You see Remington, a name that traces all the way back to Eliphalet, Remington's gun shop in 1816, making it the oldest firearms brand name in American history. You see CCI rimfire cartridges, the gold standard for target shooters since 1951, and you see Speer Gold Dot, the hollow point round carried by thousands of police officers across the country. You look at those boxes and you assume these are independent companies competing to build a better product for your money. That is an illusion. Every single one of those brands, along with Hevi-Shot, Estate Cartridge, Alliant Powder, and the Italian ammunition maker Fiocchi, is now owned and controlled by a single entity called Czechoslovak Group. Czechoslovak Group is a Prague-based defense conglomerate founded on the business of buying and reselling Soviet-era military surplus after the Cold War ended. It is run by a man named Michal Sternad, who was born in 1992 and became the sole owner of the company before he turned 30. And the story of how he built the largest commercial ammunition portfolio in the Western world while United States senators screamed for someone to stop him is one of the most consequential and least reported industrial transfers of the 21st century. But to understand how a 33-year-old arms dealer in Prague ended up owning the bullets Americans load into their rifles and handguns every weekend, you first have to understand the company that gift-wrapped them for him. The story begins not in Prague, but in a corporate boardroom in Minnesota. In 2015, a defense contractor called Alliant Tech Systems decided to spin off its commercial sporting ammunition and outdoor recreation divisions into a new publicly traded company called Vista Outdoor. Vista inherited Federal, CCI, and Speer from the parent company and immediately began operating like a Wall Street acquisition machine. The strategy was straightforward: buy brands, consolidate manufacturing, cut overhead, and report growing earnings to shareholders every quarter. But the real turning point came in September of 2020 when Remington Arms filed for bankruptcy. The company had been gutted by a private equity firm called Cerberus Capital Management, which bought it in 2007, loaded it with crushing debt, and stripped it for parts over the next 13 years. When the Remington carcass went up for auction, Vista Outdoor swooped in and bought the ammunition division and the production facility in Lonoke, Arkansas for just $81.4 million. Think about that for a moment. A brand that had been loading cartridges since before the Civil War was sold for less than the cost of a single luxury apartment building in Manhattan. Vista did not just buy a name. It acquired a functioning ammunition factory that it restarted to 24-hour operations by April 2021, pouring rounds into a starving domestic market during the worst ammunition shortage in modern memory. With that acquisition, Vista Outdoor now controlled Federal, CCI, Speer, and Remington under one corporate roof, employing nearly 4,000 people across factories in Minnesota, Idaho, Arkansas, and Oregon. And because Vista also manufactured the primers that go inside its own cartridges, it controlled a critical choke point in the entire domestic production pipeline. Primers are the tiny explosive charges seated in the base of every cartridge case. When the firing pin of your rifle or handgun strikes the primer, it detonates and ignites the gunpowder that sends the bullet downrange. They are small enough to fit on your fingertip, but they are the single most difficult component in a round of ammunition to manufacture. The chemistry is precise. The tolerances are measured in thousandths of an inch, and only a handful of factories in the Western world can produce them at scale. This matters because when ammunition runs short, it is almost never because of a bullet shortage or a brass shortage. It is always a primer shortage, and the company that controls the primers controls the entire market. That is the company Czechoslovak Group was about to buy. In October 2023, CSG signed a definitive agreement to purchase Vista Outdoor's ammunition division, now renamed the Kinetic Group, for $1.91 billion. The deal was structured as part of a complete breakup of Vista Outdoor. The ammunition brands would go to CSG. The outdoor recreation brands, including Bushnell Optics, Camelback Hydration Gear, and Fox Racing, would be sold separately to a private equity firm called Strategic Value Partners for $1.125 billion. Combined, the two transactions would return roughly $45 per share to Vista stockholders. It was a clean dismantling of an industrial company for maximum shareholder value. But when the terms became public, the opposition was fierce. Senator J.D. Vance of Ohio wrote directly to Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, describing CSG as a business with a long record of wrongdoing and well-documented connections to American adversaries, and warning that the transaction posed apparent risks to national security. Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana and Congressman Clay Higgins went even further. They warned the Treasury Department that approving this deal would concentrate the manufacturing base for small arms primers under a single foreign owner, giving one company dominance over roughly 70% of that capacity across the Western world. Former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo joined the opposition, along with national law enforcement organizations representing sheriffs and police officers across the country. And if you think those concerns were theoretical, consider what happened just a few years earlier during the ammunition crisis of 2020 and 2021. When the pandemic collided with civil unrest and an election year, demand for firearms and ammunition exploded overnight. The National Shooting Sports Foundation estimated that 2020 saw approximately 21 million firearms background checks, a 60% spike over the previous year. An estimated 8.4 million Americans bought their first firearm that year. Every single one of those new gun owners needed ammunition, and the factories could not keep up. Americans were lining up at 5 in the morning outside gun shops and big box retailers, limited to 1 or 2 boxes per customer, paying double or triple the normal price for basic 9mm range ammunition. And the bottleneck was not brass or bullets, it was primers. The handful of primer factories in the United States were running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it was still not enough. Now imagine that exact scenario happening again, except this time, the company that controls the majority of Western primer production answers to a boardroom in Prague instead of one in Minnesota. A domestic competitor tried to prevent this outcome. A group called MNC Capital, led by former Vista board member Mark Gottfredson, made repeated offers to buy all of Vista Outdoor and keep the brands under independent ownership. Their final bid reached approximately $3.2 billion. Gottfredson made his case publicly. This needs to be held in American hands. Vista's board rejected every offer, calling them financially inferior, and pushed forward with the Czech deal. The fate of the transaction now rested with CFIUS, the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States. This is the interagency panel that has the authority to block foreign acquisitions on national security grounds. The critics built their case around 2 pillars. First, the primer concentration. Second, allegations that the Strnad family had historical ties to pro-Kremlin politics in the Czech Republic, specifically through political donations to former Czech President Miloš Zeman, who was widely regarded as sympathetic to Russian interests. But CSG fought back aggressively. The company pointed out that it holds top-level NATO security clearances across multiple alliance countries. It noted that Ukraine had become its second largest market, with defense contracts accounting for 42.8% of the company's total revenue in 2024, approximately 1.7 billion euros, quadrupled from the year before. CSG was not arming Russia, it was arming Ukraine against Russia. The company also argued that foreign ownership of firearms manufacturing is nothing new. Glock is Austrian, Sig Sauer is German, Beretta is Italian, and Colt, one of the most iconic gun names in history, is already owned by CZ Group, which is also Czech. On June 25, 2024, CFIUS cleared the transaction, stating there were no unresolved national security concerns. The stockholder vote followed with nearly 98% approval, and the deal closed on November 27th, the day before Thanksgiving, while most of the country was preparing turkey dinners. There is one critical myth about this transaction that needs to be corrected because it has been repeated so many times that many gun owners now accept it as fact. Several opponents of the deal claimed it would hand CSG control over the Lake City Army Ammunition Plant, the massive government-owned facility in Independence, Missouri that produces billions of rounds of military-grade cartridges for the United States Armed Forces. That claim is not accurate. Lake City is owned by the federal government and has been operated by Olin Corporation's Winchester division under a 7-year contract since October of 2020. Vista Outdoor had a commercial agreement to purchase a portion of Lake City's output for civilian sale, but Vista never held the operating contract for the plant itself. That contract was not part of the CSG transaction, and it remains firmly under government control. And that correction matters, because it points directly to the answer every gun owner in this country should be demanding. If the commercial ammunition aisle has been consolidated under foreign ownership, does that mean there are no alternatives? No. It means you have to stop shopping by name recognition and start understanding who actually owns the company behind your ammunition. The first name you should know is Olin Corporation, the parent company of Winchester Ammunition. Winchester has been loading cartridges since 1866 and remains the largest small-caliber ammunition supplier to the United States military. Olin is publicly traded on the New York Stock Exchange and is headquartered in Clayton, Missouri, under fully domestic ownership and management. In April of 2025, Olin expanded its stateside production capacity by acquiring Ammo Incorporated's small-caliber assets, including a manufacturing plant in Manitowoc, Wisconsin. When you buy a box of Winchester, your money stays in American hands, and it supports the same company the Department of Defense trusts to operate the most important military ammunition factory in the country. The second name is Hornady, a family-owned company based in Grand Island, Nebraska, that has been privately held since it was founded in 1949. Hornady answers to no foreign board of directors and no quarterly earnings analysts on Wall Street. They are widely regarded as the innovation leader in precision rifle ammunition and have pioneered bullet technologies that transformed long-range shooting. Because Hornady is not publicly traded, they pour their profits directly back into research and manufacturing quality instead of paying dividends to a holding company in a different country. And if you want to eliminate your dependence on any ammunition corporation entirely, there is a third option that millions of experienced shooters already use but that most casual gun owners have never considered. You can reload your own ammunition. A quality single-stage press, a set of dies, and a supply of components will cost you between $400 and $800 to get started. Once you are set up, you can produce match-grade cartridges for roughly half the cost of factory loads. You control the powder charge. You control the primer seating depth, you control the brass, and you answer to no conglomerate in any country. But there is one more detail every ammunition buyer should know about where this story is heading. In January 2026, Czechoslovak Group went public on the Euronext Amsterdam Stock Exchange in the largest defense industry initial public offering in recorded history. That offering valued CSG at approximately 25 billion euros and made Michael Strnad worth $36.9 billion overnight. That made him the wealthiest defense industry executive on the planet and one of the 3 richest people under the age of 40 in the world. He built that fortune in part on the century-old reputations of brands that families in this country trusted with their lives. The era of independent ammunition manufacturing in this country is shrinking, and the consolidation is accelerating, while most of the nation is not paying attention. The conglomerates are banking on your brand loyalty. They are counting on you to see the word Remington on the shelf and feel a surge of heritage without ever asking who cashes the check when you walk out the door. But if you know where to look, and you are willing to support the companies that are still building cartridges on American soil under independent ownership, you can still buy ammunition made the way it is supposed to be made. Do not let brand nostalgia replace due diligence. Check the parent company, check the country of ownership, and never assume that a century-old name on the box means the same people are standing behind it. If you found this investigation valuable, hit subscribe so you do not miss the next story about the industry's quietly changing hands while the country is not watching.